we are thrilled to have Miss Eileen Morris. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you, Kim and Phil.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here.
So Eileen is the artistic director at Ensemble Theatre and has been for some time. We'll get into that, but we thought we would start, if you don't mind, Eileen, just talking a little bit about what the ensemble's been doing since COVID-19 hit and and where it's going, as far as you know.
Oh my gosh, yeah. As far as you know, that's a good way to put it. I think everybody is having their world be fluid right now. And so that's our new word, fluid, flexible, all of those things, right? Yeah. But the Ensemble Theatre in March, like everyone else, you all had Between Riverside and Crazy going on, and we were getting ready to preview our production of Autumn by Mr. Richard Wesley. And then we had to, you know, because of this city ordinance, government and all of that, we had to shut down. So we shut down. And then we began immediately with virtual content. By the end of March, we had started virtual content, guys. We were doing, I was telling somebody that we were doing 3 pieces of virtual content per week. And we did that from the end of March until the end of May, consistently. And so it was like from sun up to past sundown. It was midnight at night when we were working. We worked so hard just trying to make sure that we turned it out, because we were also learning about what we were doing. Yeah. We didn't have an idea of how to create the content. I mean, you know, we've all done videos within our plays and that type of thing, right? But I mean, to do it and know you had to hurry up and get it out, and then get in touch with artists, you know, look at what they were doing, view the content, make sure that it was appropriate, make sure it was the right time, go in and edit that, and then make sure that it's ready for the next day. It was like a constant butter churning, those old-fashioned butter churning things that we used to do when I was a little girl. So we did that. It was fabulous, but it was, you know, it helped us to learn so much about ourselves. I learned, I would say the one thing that I learned from all of this is about being more patient.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, being a lot more patient with things, because just when you think you have a sensibility and a control of it, you really don't.
Yeah.
So after we did the 3 times a week, then we went from the month of May, the end of May to the end of June, we did staged readings with community conversations. Sure. So we did 4 staged readings. A couple of them were world premieres, and you know, different, some of it you're seeing on the screen right now, all of those plays, and they were new, and they really spoke to the issues that were going on at this time, dealing with racial injustices and that type, and EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we were excited and thrilled that we were able to bring that to our audiences. And in the last several weeks, we've been doing our Young Performers Program, which is a training program for youth 6 to 17. So we're taking a little break from virtual content right now. We won't start up again until September, but you know, we were like in it to win it. Yeah.
We have a graphic that said all that stuff is still available on your website though, right?
It is. Oh yeah, great. Thank you, Phil. That's right. Yeah, it is. So if anybody missed it, they could get an opportunity to go and look at some of the things that we were able to execute during that time.
Yeah, those are some great shows. I encourage people to go check them out. I recognize some of those titles as terrific stuff. So go check those out, guys, on the Ensemble's website.
Yes.
So good. I'm amazed at that amount of work. We took me a long time, as you know, since you're rescheduled tonight, to figure this out.
That's okay. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm so glad you're back. This is great. So tell us a little bit about your history at the Ensemble, how you got started, you know, how you came on board, your history with
George Hawkins,
founder, and I know that you worked under him for a period of 7 or 8 years, I think. But you can tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, you all got it right on point.
Oh, yay!
That was a much younger picture of myself.
Oh, you guys look great.
That was probably in the mid 80s, everybody, when George and I were together. So, okay, so I'm from Illinois. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, raised Catholic all my life. My mom and dad moved us from Chicago. We were on the west side of Chicago, so you know that's a little rough. Yep. And so they moved us from the west side of Chicago to the country in Illinois, 60 miles south, so that we could be raised in an environment that would be a little bit more wholesome, healthy, and we all went to Catholic school. So I'm a Catholic, as I was telling you all earlier, I'm a Catholic girl, I'm a Black woman, And I'm telling you, and I'm an artist. So it's all these three wonderful things combined together. So for me, I always loved the arts, but for the longest, I wanted to be a nun. I loved, you know, what the religion meant, how the women carried themselves. I thought that I would be really one of those people that would be really good at being a nun. But come 5th grade, I don't know what happened, but I always say that's when I started wearing glasses and, you know, hormones start kicking in and all of that stuff. And so I decided I didn't want to be a nun anymore. And I won't say what I normally say in that situation, but,
we'll all imagine.
You can imagine what that is.
All imagine.
You can say that.
Okay. So, so anyway, fast forward, I started auditioning and wanting to be in plays and finding a voice that I thought was meant for me to be heard. Well, but then they started telling me that I couldn't audition for Snow White. And back then, those were the kind of plays that we were doing, right, in middle school. Well, they didn't call it middle school because remember, we went, well, you all might not know, Philip may know, but we went from 1st to 8th grade. And so anyway, so they said that I couldn't audition for Snow White. And so I was like, well, why can't I audition for Snow White? What is that all about? And they said, well, because you're Black, you're a Negro, because that was the word that was used at the time. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? If I'm the best person, why shouldn't I be? So my idea of what the arts were about telling the story from every perspective. And it began from that moment when I was told that I couldn't be Snow White. Fast forward to majoring in theater in college, my mom and daddy always said, hey, you know, if you want to do that, that's fine, but you have to get a degree in something besides theater. So my minor was English. So I went to school at Northern Illinois University, majored in theater. And all of my family is from Houston. So my mom and dad, both sides. So we would come to Houston 2 or 3 times a year. And my sister, 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗃, who was a professor and an architect at University of Houston in the architecture department, she designed the 𝗕𝗵𝗶𝘀 Community Center on Live Oak. And so she kept telling me her husband worked across the street from this place. It was on 2am that she used to see this man out there building things and actually, you know, they would be rehearsing sometimes outside. And she said, when you come to Houston to visit again, I'm going to introduce you to him. So she introduced me to George Hawkins. Oh. And we were standing right outside where he had a sawhorse and some wood and he was sawing and we were just talking. And he said, well, you're in theater. I said, yeah. I said, I have a degree in theater. And so he said, well, if you decide to move to Houston, look me up, let me know. Well, a year later, I wound up moving. And I, you know, got in touch with George and he put me to work immediately. I mean, I became mostly his floor sweeper, you know, calling people up, all the things that, you know, volunteers do when they're trying to just get into the door. And that's why I tell people how important volunteer is because, you know, I volunteered a lot at the Ensemble Theater. And then eventually he got a grant from, it used to be called the Cultural Arts Council of Houston, which is now we know it as HAA, Houston Arts Alliance. And so he got a grant for a managing director position that he hired me for. So from that moment on, which was like a year or so later, I was able to become George Hawkins' right-hand person. And together, you know, we were able to really make some great art and produce some wonderful work at 1010 2M, which was a little small, less than 1,000, you know, square feet facility. And then in '85, we moved into the Ensemble Theatre at 3535 Main, which everybody knows where we are now.
Right. Well, I think we should show the video about Ensemble real quick that you did because it's a great full circle story about Snow White and you not being able to do Snow White and what was a wonderful inspirational moment at the Ensemble about Cinderella. Let's watch this real quick.
Catherine.
The Ensemble Theatre, located in the heart of Midtown, is the oldest African-American theater in the Southwest, founded in 1976 by Mr. George Hawkins, a platform for having our stories told from the African-American perspective. When we did the play Cinderella, there was a little girl. She looked at the playbill and she said, oh, Mommy, she looks like me. That's what you want.
Reliance celebrates Houstonians, making Black history every day.
Of course, it froze a little, but I think it's so beautiful.
And it's a true story. I mean, when we did the play Cinderella, guys, at the theater, all of these kids started coming to the theater all dressed up in their ball gowns. They had their tiaras on their head. They were walking around. And then this one little girl, she looked at her playbill. She held her playbill up and she says, oh, mommy, she looks like me. And that just, Jeanette and I just went, what? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's how every little girl, no matter what race or ethnicity or color they are, believe they're Cinderella and Snow White. And so great that you could do that for those little girls. I think that's great. I love that story. That's great.
Well, it's true.
You have done something so amazing with that theater. I remember the first time I saw a show there, and I was blown away. I've seen like 5 of the August Wilson plays because August Wilson is one of my favorite writers. I wrote my final paper in theater on Fences. It's my favorite play.
Really?
Fences is my favorite play.
Oh, wonderful. That's exciting.
One of the most beautiful stories ever written. I broke out in sobs when that horn is being played for Troy. It's a beautiful, he's an amazing writer. So it's wonderful that you have done the whole cycle and you won an award for that, which Catherine has a picture of you getting, which I don't remember the name of it, but you won.
Fences?
Yes, and you won the American August Wilson.
That's for doing all 10 plays.
Because you had done the whole cycle, which
right.
not
And then
people can say, right?
There's only at the time when we got this award, there were there's Jeanette on the far right, Chris Rawson, who's the critic for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and he followed August with all of his work, myself, and then Jesse Tyson, our board president. So that's who that is from right to left. Anyway, but we're one of maybe, I think it's about 10 theater companies, guys, that have produced all 10 of August Wilson plays. There's about 5 regional theaters like Seattle Rep, the Goodman Theater, Pittsburgh Public Theater, there's a couple more, and then there's several other Black institutions like St. Louis Black Rep, Pittsburgh Playhouse, the Ensemble Theater. There's a theater in New Orleans. So it's been about 10 of us that have actually produced all 10. So that's what that award was from. And that was exciting because I as a director and as an actress and as a storyteller, really, you want people to be able to engage in the stories. And the thing about it's funny that you talked about Fences because that I love that play, but it's not my favorite. My favorite is the same one that August Wilson, it was his favorite, and that's Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Yeah.
And I love that play because
I really shouldn't say there's a favorite.
It's hard. I know for me, I often go when people say, well, how's that your favorite? And I said, I think because it was the first professional play that I did, and I did it at the Alley, and 𝗘𝗶𝗹𝗲 directed it. And so that was what was exciting for me. And then also, I think the story, just the language of the story, and that's the beauty of August's work, is that it's universal. So even though it may come from the Black American experience, it has universal, language that speaks to the human dynamics of all ethnicities and any person of gender or color. And that's what I love about, about it. That's what I love about theater, really.
Me too.
Eileen, do you remember when you first read or saw an August Wilson play and what it meant to you?
The first play, so I did Joe Turner in 1990. So I think that the first play I saw, August Wilson, my ex-husband Alex has done a lot of his work.
Yeah.
And 𝗘𝗶𝗹𝗲 was a director that helped to help August Wilson to find his voice, right? And to know that he was a playwright from Minnesota. So I think the first play that I saw was in the the Ensemble did it. So that might've been the second one, but 1985 was the Ensemble Theatre did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. George Hawkins directed that. But I think I had seen one in the early 80s, like right when I first got to Houston. Alex did a play that was out of town, and I saw that. So, I mean, I've been a lover of it, and for me, I only need to do 2 more plays, everybody. 2 more August Wilson plays to be the first woman to have directed all 10 plays.
Wow.
And that's the Piano Lesson and Gem of the Ocean. So once I do those 2, then I'll be, 𝗵𝗫 Rashad is almost, I've done 8, so 𝗵𝗫 Rashad has done 5, I believe, and then there's another sister out in Illinois, she's done 6.
Woo! So you're going.
We have to send that energy to make sure that I get to do those.
You gotta do it. You gotta do
It's a very, very healthy race.
That's wonderful.
I like that.
That's great.
Yeah, I hope you win that one.
Yeah, I do too. I hope
It's not about winning. It's about, doing the work and, being able to really feel proud about what we've been able to give to our community, giving in the voices, giving in the stories, giving in the kind of combining together of what that art is. His stories are so rich and wonderful. So I can talk about August all night long.
I agree. And I think what you said about why Fences was my favorite is it's the first one I read. And I think as a white woman of privilege, I read that and it was the first time I think I understood the Black person's struggle and story and the way their life was in a manner that I had not seen it. And
that's
it moved me. And I was like, there's a whole world here that I have not been able to access. And so I started reading his plays. And that's why I probably love it, because it opened something up for me as an artist that I hadn't seen in a way that he wrote it that made me feel like I actually could be a part of it.
Well,
or access it.
And I think in all of his plays, the family unit is always there, and there's something going. Well, maybe not all the time, but it's
no.
Like, hey, Eileen, it's accessible to everyone.
I felt like I was
That's
so
right.
excited.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right, though. The family dynamic is there. It's just, just how the family is. It's not a traditional family like what, European America may think, but it definitely is a way of, putting people together to create families. We all do that. Like our next door neighbor may be Aunt so-and-so, but she's no relation to us. So, and for the African-American family, I think all families do that.
Yes.
That you all had to come in before the street lights went out, or else so-and-so was going to tell your mama, then you get a whooping from them. And when you got home, you're going to get a whooping from your mama.
That's what I meant, is I understood them like me. That was what's so great. I was like, we're all the same. We all love people. We all are in trouble. Exactly. You're right.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
I started to say it because I thought, family, and then I was like, well, wait, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is not about a family. But then as you've been talking, those guys in the band are like,
yes,
yeah,
that's right. That's what I'm saying. You're absolutely right on with that.
Yeah,
right.
That production that you put on of Ma Rainey,
that was great.
It was the only production of the play I've ever seen.
That was
and
so good.
I treasure that night. It was great.
Yeah.
It was, I get weepy when I talk about August and his work, because it affects my life every time. And I can do the play several times over and still find something new and engaging and exciting. And that play was hard because, we're dealing with, and it was my third time actually directing Ma Rainey, but Byron Jaquette got hurt. He was supposed to be in that play, and he fell and broke his thumb. So, he, of course, being the consummate actor that he is, and he felt that he would be able to do that, but he was playing, I can't remember the character's name, but he had the bass. So the bass is huge, bigger than he is almost.
You can carry it around.
And so there's no way we had to go up and down stairs, to get into that. And I was like, there's no way that can happen. So, Jason Carmichael came in and stepped in and really did a great job from the beginning, but it was just the dynamic of going through those issues, just like anything else in theater, that.
Yeah.
You have it all lined up in your head, how you mapped it out. You've looked at the mission and the vision of what this is going to be. You've strategically planned, what your director's thoughts are and how you're going to move forward. And then life happens.
Yes.
And so how do you adjust when life happens?
It does. You have to do it.
We have a question in our comment section. It's from an old friend of mine, Holly Clark. And she asked near the beginning of the show, whether you've found through your online programming that you've reached people, an audience that you had not reached before for whatever reason. I'm curious about it too. So I thought
how do you think that works?
Yeah, I wish I had my statistics, but we actually have found that we've reached a lot of people. That's been the beauty of it, of virtual online programming as well, because people from all over can now watch it, or they can take their leisure and watch it, because first of all, they're not as busy as they were because they're not doing outside activities other than their own homes and that type of thing. But, we've had artists, we've had audiences from all over. And I think the thing is that people really want to be able to explore things that are going to bring them some self-gratification. So we found that our numbers have, I mean, like for our virtual online programming, when we're doing it 3 days a week, called our Bold Online series, we actually reached, we would average about 4,000 people per week, 4K or something like that, or per event. So if we were doing 3 a week, then that gives you an idea of what we were doing. And then toward the end, it was more than that. And then when the readings, that became something else, because the readings created specific content for people that wanted to see, you know, specific things dealing with the issues or the subject matter of that particular play that was being read. And then the community conversations, because we did something with a mental health expert. We did something with teen parents, because we were reaching out to, we were like, one of the things that we talked about was how to reach or how to take care of African American girls in a pandemic. How do you do that? And some of the things that the parents were talking about, keeping them on a schedule, because, you know, we all had to realize that, you know, you can't just be so lax. You have to put yourself on a regimen that would be, you know, conducive to your own being. And that was one of the things that the parents talked about. So I would say that we reached a lot more audiences, of course, in our theater. Our theater is intimate, like not as intimate as you all's, but it's intimate. I mean, we're 190 seats. I don't know what you all are.
Well, so
around 100.
The logical and largely unfair question is, if coronavirus were to go away tomorrow, would you continue producing online content?
I think so. I mean, I know so. Let me not even say I think so. The reason I know so is because of the fact that we can reach new audiences and other audiences outside of what we're able to do normally. And the thing is that we now understand the importance of this kind of universality. We always knew it, right? We always wanted, I mean, one of the things that we do at the ensemble, I don't know if you all have done this, but when we say hello to our audience, we ask them who's there from out of town or out of state or whatever.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
So we get all these wonderful numbers. I mean, we have had people from New Zealand, from, you know, China, from, you know, Ethiopia. We've had people from all over that have come to the theater. So that gets everybody in the audience excited. So that's been a really small way that we've been able to, you know, see the impact. But now virtually, it's so much wider. You know, the path is open even more. And so I know that we'll continue to do virtual programming, because it has definitely impacted the ensemble, our mission, the vision of the theater, and most importantly, our community. I think that's what's really great.
Sometimes I feel like I was born yesterday, because I've been to shows at your theater and I've seen the, you know, the head usher or whoever that is who does that, who asks those questions.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's just such a nice sort of icebreaker and thing to do. And now I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, you count those hands.
Of course, that makes
sense. And you write it down and you put it in your grant application.
Absolutely.
And now we feel like, well, we're not so smart.
We got to start doing that.
Yeah, you should start doing it. I mean,
oh yeah, we run a theater. And
no. People love the ownership. You know, people love the ownership of that. Other audience members, we've had audience members go home and they've talked to somebody else and they said, oh yeah, my friend was here and they told me that there was somebody here from Hawaii or whatever, and they go, that was so cool. And I'm like, okay, you know, we're glad you're here.
I was there. So I should have stolen. I always tell my students all the best ideas are stolen.
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are.
That's awesome. That's great. That's a good idea. So when you come to my theater, I'm going to ask, who's here from out of town? From the ensemble, you'll hear the same question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I was just gonna say I love it when I'm in your theater and I go to visit and I'm watching a play and I see ensemble patrons there. I love that.
I do too.
Because you know what I mean. It makes me feel that, you know, even though Houston is the fourth, almost the third largest city in the U.S., it's so wonderful that our patrons support other, all of us, and that, or at least a number of them do. And it's great when I'm sitting in the audience and I see that happening, and I'm able to talk to some of our patrons, and they'll look at me like, well, what are you doing here? I'm like, finally, I got some time, and I'm coming to see
a play.
I binge watch plays, so you'll notice that when I come, I may go to a play on Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday. Then I'm done for a couple of months, then I start up again. So
yeah, I'm kind of like that too. We do the little bit too. Yeah, and but yeah, we love it when we see the artistic directors come in our theater, and we try to make sure we're visible out there in the world too, because not just because we love to watch theater, which we love theater, of course, so we want to see theater all the time, and we also want to support the other theaters in town, which I think is important, but we also want to see the artists in action. I mean, an artist can come give me an audition, and once in a while not give a great audition because they just, for some reason, but I'll see them on stage and I'll be like, oh my God, that was amazing. And I want to make sure I see them do their work. I think that I feel like I owe that to the artists in this community, that I go out and watch their work, because an audition is a different skill set even than doing the actual play. So I want to make sure I go out and go, hey, I love this city and I love these artists, and I want to make sure I sit in those audiences as many times as I can and see. And I like to see plays, so I'm not like hurting myself, but that I'm also getting the benefit of watching designers, actors, and everybody else do their work. So
you're so on point, Kim, because that, we all love theater, and I could see a play when we go we go and present at the National Black Theater Festival every 2 years in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The ensemble does.
Yeah.
And we take a play, and that's where we can see, we're there for a week. And you can see plays, you can see up to 3 plays a day and do at least 2 staged readings. And I'm normally doing at least 2 plays a day and at least 2 staged readings. And so that's for the entire week. Yep. And it just, the energy that you get from that, and what you're absolutely right about watching the artists, actually seeing them perform, it gives you such a different view, especially for artists that another perspective of them, seeing the production values and what what's been put into that production, and seeing somebody else's work instead of seeing their portfolio. Right. So all of those things are intricately important to what we do, which is why it makes the art so exciting in what it is that we do. So you're right on that.
I totally agree. Yep, I'm glad you see that too. It's nice to hear artistic directors say, yeah, I mean, being a part of that energy and a part of watching that whole thing come to fruition, and how people actually put the product on stage and together, is just as important for us to share in that experience and learn what those artists are coming to, how much they've grown. That's a really exciting thing for me about being in a part of this whole city too. Yeah. Not just for my own pleasure for theater, which I love.
No, absolutely right. And my favorite aspect of the whole process is rehearsal. I love rehearsal. So a lot of times when I go out of town, I may even ask if I have a friend that's doing some work, I'll ask, can I come sit in on rehearsal? Now, I may be there for a meeting or something else, but I love to sit in on rehearsals because you learn so much in just watching the process. I always say that, being a director, you're the biggest cheerleader in the world. I feel like that, I have to know all the cheers. I have to make them up. I have to plan the process. I have to do all that, but you're the biggest cheerleader. And it's like, oh my gosh, the energy that it takes, you're always on an internal high, and that high has its ebbs and flows. And it just, the energy from that is so amazing. It just is.
I totally agree. I always tell people when I'm teaching directing, because I teach directing too, and I'm always saying, I don't have time for anybody who doesn't understand that the only way to get the best thing out of people is to walk into that room with love. If you don't love everybody and love everything in that room, you're never going to get what you want. And it doesn't mean you can't be hard on someone. You can't be you can't push them. But if you don't push them from a place of love, then they're never going to trust you, and they're never going to want to be their best, and they're not going to want to be a part of a team. That's a skill. And when you learn that and you get excited by that, like you said, the whole world changes in that room.
Oh yeah. And you're so absolutely right on about that. And that's, to me, is the beauty of of directing. And for me, it is, at least I feel that energy, that kind of bouncing back and forth of human energy, the synergy rather that happens when you have artists really creating and figuring it out. That's the beauty I like, is like figuring it out, because you know, you can go in there with the best laid plans of mice and men, so to speak, but you know yourself that when you get human beings in there that are in there kind of making it happen, and they have, you know, their personalities and then the character and all of that stuff washed up together, coming up together, you go, wow, okay, let me rethink that, or let me figure this out, or what can we do to get to the point, to get to a certain point aspect of what we're trying to do with this play. It's absolutely wonderful.
And also, when I'm an actor, you know, if I come in and I really think I know the way this character has to go and what has to happen, if you as the director want to move me in another direction, my first impulse sometimes is to resist you because I'm afraid.
Yes,
so if you don't love me, I'm not going to trust you and go in a new direction because I'm afraid. I don't want to look bad, and I'm scared of going the wrong way, so I might kind of push you a little. And if you love me, I'll open and I'll go, okay, she's not trying to hurt me. Okay, I'll go over here. It's like, that's kind of what, you may not articulate it that way, but you have to feel that way, and then you move that way. It's a really interesting, it's an interesting psychology that happens in that room with actor, director, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Just so beautiful and so fun, and it can be hard, and it can be so joyful, and it can be crazy and strange, and it's a neat thing that
there's so many words that describe what it is. It's just wonderful.
We have a comment, and then I think a really good question. The comment from our friend Pam Nolting is, "She's a dynamo."
I love you.
That's
we know,
you.
but we know that.
Which I love, and you are.
Yeah.
And this is this question is from our one of our board members, and this is a guy who is also a performer, has been a performer and a director. Dan O'Brien is his name. I don't know whether you know.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh good.
So I'm going to read it exactly as he wrote it.
Okay.
Ask Eileen if she thinks that the current national conversation around the Black Lives movement will bring new people, Black Lives Matter movement, will bring new people to her theater that normally wouldn't have come, and or how the movement will affect theater, I guess the ensemble, or theater in general. I think that, however you want to tackle any of that.
Yeah, you know, that has been, it has been a part of our discussion for a while. But let me say, I'm going to say a couple of things, and then just because I was listening, but then I'm also thinking about how to respond. I may ask you to repeat something else. But first thing first, I think that the ensemble theater has forever been, you know, ingrained in the work of telling the stories of African American culture. That's our mission. That's the vision of the institution. So, but telling the stories from an African American perspective means that, you know, looking at things from the lens of African Americans. It doesn't mean that, again, as we talked about with fences and all of that, it doesn't mean that those plays, you know, because I get asked all the time, well, can white people come to your theater, or can people of another culture come to your theater? It's like, what? What are you talking about? Of course. Why wouldn't you want to come? Why wouldn't you want to have a shared experience that deals with human dynamics and that deals with the stories that are being told? But from our perspective, we've always been telling these stories of dealing with racial injustices, dealing inequities, you know, all of the inclusion. We've always told the story. That's the basis from which we've been in existence. George Hawkins founded the Ensemble Theatre in 1976 because of the fact that he was tired of playing maids and butlers, I mean, not maids, but butlers, or playing roles that really didn't speak to his story as an African-American male. And he wanted to be able to have a place and a platform where African-American artists could be able to work. And not saying that maids and butlers and all of those slaves and all of that are not a part of our history, because it is. But the thing is that there are other aspects of it. And he founded the Ensemble Theatre as a result of that. So I think that that's what we are now looking at, helping our audiences to understand. We've always had this. We've always, every time you see a play at the Ensemble Theatre, there's something in, there's some legacy, there's some energy that's in there. There's something about our ancestors that needs to be told, that you need to understand. Remember, we live in the European world, but the stories are not always told in European textbooks. And so as a result of that, theater, the arts are a means of being able to have those stories told and understood and told from the perspective that they come from. So that's one thing. And then we've also thought of, continually, tackling now about strategizing how we help our audiences to understand why we tell the stories. Because I think people think, oh, you're just doing a play. Well, for us, it's not just a play. And, I'm not saying it for, whatever the way is for other institutions. I'm saying for the ensemble theater, it's more than just a play. It's the dynamics that are happening, how it is that it's going to affect you and what you're going to do to make a change in the world from that particular play. So do we think that we'll get more audiences or different audiences or additional audiences as a result of Black Lives Matter? I hope so. I hope that more people will recognize that they need to come, first of all, they need to open themselves up, open up their minds, open up their hearts, and they need to, come and not be afraid to figure out what they may need to become a better person. And that's the thing that gets people, is that the reason that we don't do certain things and we stop ourselves is because we, like you said earlier, Kim, about, when you're as an actress and you're working, sometimes you get fearful if you have to follow certain things. It's the same way in the world.
Yes.
So I think it's about, allowing yourself, if nothing else, being in this pandemic should have taught us all that we have no control.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have control. So what are the things that we must do? We must figure out what is it that you need to become a better person. We must vote. That's another thing we must do. We must fill out the census if you haven't already, because those things are going to help us be able to move forth and become better people. So I hope I answered it in some way. If I didn't, tell me.
You did.
And I hope
that
we
was
can
great.
lift that
was
part
so
out
great.
and people will watch that for years to come.
Well,
that was fantastic.
That was just wonderful. And I think you said something really important about that people have to want. What you said to me was people have to want to change. They have to want to deal with something difficult and be a better person.
Well, and face a fear that that's where it starts.
And
right?
you have to want to change. And until you want to change, and change is about wanting to know more than you know today.
That's right. Wanting to know more than you know today.
That's right. And as artists, I think we have a little bit of an advantage because we always want to do that. We may have limited ourselves into a tiny little nice safe circle. And now I think with the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of us, especially those of us that are entitled white artists, have said, oh, where have we limited ourselves, even with our friends and our brothers and sisters of all kinds of races and colors, and even allowed ourselves to be limited there. And to be honest and say, I can do more. I can learn more. I can be more available. I can be more helpful. I can be more open. And if you do those things, Alice said something to us that was wonderful. She said, we said, what can we do? And she goes, just think, how would you want someone to treat you? What would you want someone to do for you? Give you, and then act. And basically she's saying act accordingly. And if people would do that, they go to more plays about African-American history. They do more things that would involve them in a bigger eclectic community. They do those things. Yeah.
Well, because the world is like that. I mean, come on.
That's
the
right.
world is not black and white. The world is all of these different wonderful shades. So why wouldn't you want to be a part of what that is? Which is why I think my parents sent me to Catholic schools, not only because they wanted us to have the best education that we could have at that time in that area where we lived, but they wanted us to have the same advantage as anybody else. They wanted us to have a well-rounded world. So even though we were going to Catholic schools, my daddy was the type of man that before Martin Luther King's birthday was even a national holiday, he would make us, after Martin Luther King passed, he would make us stay home on his birthday and write these book reports about Martin Luther King, long before it was a holiday and we had to do that. Why? Because he wanted us to know our history. My mother and father wanted us to understand from what as August Wilson says, the ground on which we stand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is tangential, but I'm going to ask you about it. I was reading an article I heard an article on NPR about this horrible thing that happened in, I believe it was Wilmington, South Carolina. And it was an election where quite a long time ago, where, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Well, basically black people gained political power and then had it just taken away by force. And I'm talking about, like, I think in the 1800s, maybe early 1900s.
Oh, was this Greenwood?
That's it. Sorry.
That's Greenwood. Yeah, it's Greenwood. We actually did, stage reading of that play. That was one of the first ones. Keep going. Go ahead. What were you going to ask?
My question was, and then like the next day after I heard this story on NPR about just that, there was this story about Lorraine Hansberry and that they'd found this play that she hadn't finished. Is that the play you did?
Yeah, no, that's not the play. It's not the play. It was another play. What was the name of that play that I cannot remember right now what she did, but there were several institutions, several towns like that. Greenwood was one of them. That was right outside of Oklahoma or somewhere like that. Yeah. And so same thing, all Black community. And then, the thing is that because of the fact that Black people were prominent and they were acting, in a traditional European way, then the Europeans couldn't take it, right? So they came through and burned the town down. Same thing happened in Eatonville, Florida with Zora Neale Hurston. So Zora Neale Hurston was from Eatonville, all Black community. And, the thing is they didn't burn that down because that community was a lot stronger and had learned from, what had happened in Greenwood, because Greenwood, you were right, Philip, it's like in the 1800s. And Eatonville, I think, was like early 1900s. Don't quote me on my dates and all of that stuff. But that just the fact that, and the thing is that the world could not see, they couldn't fathom that, African Americans, they could have things, they could be in a place in the world, and they could be making a difference and taking care of their own. And I think that, I think still today, those are issues. I think that they, indirectly are issues that we have to deal with as a community, as a city, as a state, as the world. I mean, I just, I think it's something that we all need to be sensitized to.
Well, and, the issue is too that in my public school education in Des Moines, Iowa, which I thought was pretty swell at the time, no history class ever mentioned any of these things.
Nope.
So
of course not.
You need to know your history, and you need to sort of know where those history books are coming from.
Yes, absolutely right. Right on with that. Right on.
But so Lorraine Hansberry, she writes this amazing play, Raisin in the Sun, and then she dies like so soon after that.
So
and for me to find out that there's another play, and maybe it's, maybe it really is just a first draft that she wouldn't have wanted anybody to see, but still it's tantalizing, isn't it?
It is. The plays that I know from Lorraine are To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, The Sign in Sidney Brewstein's Window, of course, A Raisin in the Sun, and I can't think of this other one that she wrote.
Someone said the play was an adaptation of Marrow of Tradition.
Not familiar.
Well, that must be something else. That's something else.
And then someone else brings up the Tulsa massacre in the
that was
1920s, which is a similar deal.
So somebody's given us our history dates down there.
But that's not the one. That's not the one that
we were
Lorraine
talking about. Yeah,
right.
might look it up for us.
But I think you're right. I mean, but the brilliant minds of that's just life that happened. With Lorraine, that she was so brilliant and so young.
Yeah.
And what was she, 32 or 30 something?
30s, yeah.
And so prolific and created that play, it's a play that I almost thought about doing right after the, in our new season coming up.
Yeah. And
the reason I thought about it is because of the dynamic of what that play stands for, the story and what it says and how we need to be reminded of the things that we need to do. But the only reason I didn't is because it's a play we've done before. And then also it has 9 characters in it. And right now, with everything going on, we have to tread lightly.
Finances.
So,
So let's talk about choosing plays and a season, because you just mentioned one of the toughest things for us, which is we're going to do 4 plays and we get 20 actors, and this many of them are going to be equity actors and this many aren't going to be. And then we have to come up with 4 plays that fit that.
Yeah.
And we almost never get our first choices of plays, right? Now, I'm
times,
curious
no.
what it's like for you and some of your challenges, or I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same. It's the difference is that primarily I'm always looking for. It's always about the story first, right? So, what is the story? How does it speak to me? How does it speak to me as a woman, as a Black woman, as a human being, as an artist? What is it? How does it speak to my audiences? Which, you know, pretty much all of us have similar audiences. You know, age 35 and up women, typically. And, you know, and we're all trying to get a younger audience in our, you know, our theaters more consistently. Not that we don't have them, but I'm talking about the consistency of it.
Sure.
So I'm looking for plays that are going to speak to that, but definitely first speak to the story and to what it makes me, how does it make me feel? What is it that I think that is saying? And then it's about same kind of makeup, you know. Okay, for me, we're a guest artist under a guest artist contract with Equity. And so how are we able to, we typically hire we do 6 plays a year. So we hire anywhere from 6 to 8 Equity actors per year.
Right.
And so we already know that. So that's like 1.5 or 1 or 2 per show.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe 2 shows that'll have 2 and the other shows will have just 1. And then the rest, you know, we're going to be artists that are going to be professional artists, but they're going to be able to work within the realm of what it is that we have to offer. So it's that same thing. And then, you know, there are times when there's a wonderful play that we want to be able to do. And do we have the right actor to do that? You know, is there somebody in our community that we know we can? Pretty much, most times, yes.
Yeah.
You know, yes, we can make that work. But then when you get into these larger cast shows, unless it's a Christmas show or a show at the end of the season or some specialty show that we just have to do because the story is so dynamic, it's going to be hard to do it because of the fact, the number of people, because, you know, even just logistics, dressing rooms and costumes and space and rehearsal space and all of those things. And, you know, we own a building.
Yeah. We're like, we're doing it in the parking lot.
Yeah. So there you go. So you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it can become, that can have its own set of, you know, energy right there as well.
I hear you. It's definitely a lot of things that go into planning a season and picking plays, and people don't even realize all the balancing things you have to have. And then you'll pick a play sometimes and you can't get it because
you can't get it
held or something, and you just can't. And you were like, oh my God, it took me 6 months to pick that play. And now I can't even have it.
That happened with us just last year with Skeleton Crew, where the alley got, you know, we were on hold for that forever.
We applied for it too.
And then the alley theater, you know, got it. And so it was like, and so of course, you know, I had people go, well, how did that happen? Well, you know, it's all about the royalties and all of those things.
Money.
You know, that's why back in the day, I used to love August and what he would do so much, because I could just call August Wilson up and say, hey, August, we really want to do this play.
Yeah.
And we really need you to make sure that we at the Ensemble Theater are able to do this play. It speaks to our community. And it should come from that perspective. And, you know, he would really look at that. And it got to a point where I was able to, because at that time, it wasn't as many, you know, regional theaters that were non-African American in the city. And so I could just also call the other artistic directors and say, hey, you know, normally you don't do this. The only one that would have done it would have been the alley. And then I'd call up, you know, the alley administration and talk with them about that. So you're absolutely right, Kim. The things that we have to go through, and we're planning so far in advance. That's the other thing that people don't know.
Yeah, they don't.
That we're planning years and years and years. I mean, we're looking at, you know, we planned or are planning. For us, we've already planned our 2021 season, but I'm looking at the next year, the 21-22 season, the 22nd, 23rd season.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm that far in advance of plays that I want that, you know, are going to speak to the vision and mission of the institution, and what I think is going to be important for our audiences to be able to have as an experience, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to set the record straight. I lost the name. Jo Davis Jones.
Joanne Davis Jones.
Oh, okay. And she's the one who put the play that Lorraine Hansberry was working on was based on a novel called The Marrow of Tradition by Charles W. Chestnut, an African-American novelist. It's a historical novel, and it is in fact, about what happened in 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
Wilmington, North Carolina. Wonderful. Thank you, Joanne. So
go.
Joanne Davis-Jones is the resident dramaturg for the Ensemble Theatre.
Oh, nice.
And she also tells us.
Perfect.
So I would expect that to come from her. And that's another thing that I love about, you know, what we do is having a dramaturg come on board and actually share, because our artists, you know, all of our artists, most of them are working artists, meaning that they have full-time jobs during the day, and then they come, you know, to the theater, you know, around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever time, you know, our rehearsal schedules are. And then but they're working their full-time jobs. So even though most artists always research their own work and their own, you know, character preparation, it helps to have a dramaturg there to kind of do some of that legwork to give them a point of reference to begin with. And so we love that aspect. And we're lucky, we're blessed that we have a dramaturg on every production that we do.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
She also tells us that Lorraine Hansberry left over 300 pages.
Yeah,
This
of the
play.
play.
So who knows what's
she was
in there?
definitely working on it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised her husband, Robert Nefroff, or whatever his last name is, I'm surprised that he didn't try to get that, you know, completed. Interesting to know. I'm gonna have to do some research on that now.
Yeah, you know, you wonder if maybe a modern living playwright would be willing to
right
try to tackle
Try to
it.
finish it and get it
It's-
worked out,
so,
right?
So we've only got a few minutes left because we
really
make
I
you
know.
go more than an hour.
These always go so fast.
But Lee Davis asks,
Lee!
are you developing any new work? And I presume he means the ensemble, but maybe he's asking you personally too.
Well, it's a she, and she used to work with us at the Ensemble Theatre. She lives in Kansas City, I think Missouri right now.
Oh,
She also
nice.
used to be box office person at the
Really?
Alley Theater years ago.
Oh,
So hi, Miss Lee. And so the Ensemble Theater, we are so blessed. I don't know if you all know, but 3 years ago, I got awarded a bold women's theater leadership circle grant.
which we were
It was a
supposed to make.
$250,000 grant per year for we initially it was just for 1 year, but we've been getting it for 3 years. This is the last year, the third year now. And it's for us to be able to, for me as an artistic director to be able to, you know, go and view work and improve myself as a director, as an artist, for us to bring in an artistic associate. That's what we brought in 𝗵𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀to be able to have a platform for women's voices to be heard. And so we have more women designers that we bring on now, costume, lights, set, props. And then also we do a women's workshop activity where they're all female workshop leaders, and that anybody can come to them. That'll be coming up in October. Shonda Wilson may be one of those, so keep our fingers crossed on that. And so the work so as another thing as a result of the Bold on grant has been that we are able to do commissioned work. So we have done one new work, a world premiere of A Christmas Show last year. We're working on a play right now that's dealing with the Reverend and Mrs. Lawson. Everybody should know them from the city. So we're doing a world premiere of that. That'll be coming up this time next year. And so we've been able to do 2 to 3 new works that have never been done before as a result of this grant, this bold grant that we got, which has really been a blessing in us being able to empower women. Carol Dunn is the facilitator of that grant at Northern Stage. And so it's been great. These 5 women, this cohort have come together to be able to do this work. So yes, we're doing new work. Personally, I'm doing the work at the Ensemble Theater because I really don't have time to do a lot of other activity, even though I want to get on stage and act again. So that's something that I've been really itching to do.
Well, maybe we can hire you.
Yeah, well, you know, I would love that. We just make the time work out. I would love to make that happen, guys.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna forget that. I'm gonna keep hold you that one.
You're gonna maybe regret you said
You're gonna
that.
regret that, right? I'm gonna get a play and I'm gonna go, but you said I got this play for you. You have to do this.
I like this question a lot from our friend Holly Barretto, who says,
oh, Holly.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know her. Is there a show that you did at the ensemble that was a surprise, either in terms of it being an audience favorite or how it moved from page to the stage?
Something
Like,
history.
I think I'm gonna go from audience favorite. You know, our audiences, they love those musicals, and The Wiz
Oh.
was their favorite
Oh.
one. That's the one that broke all
Yeah.
records. But I think that was a surprise from the page to the stage, was not even written by an African-American artist. Yeah, it was written by David Mamet, and that was the play
oh
Race.
yeah.
Oh,
When we did that play Race, everybody asked, why would you do that play? And I said, the story. It's the story that, you know, is being given here that needs to come from the African-American perspective. Because if it's done at another theater, it's coming from a European perspective. And we have lived in this world. So the thing is that I, you know, when I directed that play, and it had a great cast, and we discovered, so Justin Doran was in that, Jason Carmichael, I can't remember now who else, this other young lady that's out in Hollywood doing work right now. But anyway, I think that it was just about the dynamic of this story and what it meant for our audiences. And the other challenge of that was that you could not have sound cues. So that was like a real, because that's his way, you know, David Mamet. Your contract, when you sign this contract, no sound cues in between, no urging on, you know, just let the play live. So when the play ended, it just ended.
Yeah, he's all
and you're not hearing anything, nothing. And I was like, what the hell? What's going on? So it took me a minute, but what happened is that the audience, you can't have a talk back, none of that stuff. So we actually had dialogue like months after that, because our audiences were like bursting, wanting to talk.
Oh, wow. That's so great. That's hysterical. They were like, why are they doing this like this? It's traumatic for us. We're all clogged up. Oh, wow.
Well, maybe we'll ask you this one last question, if you don't mind.
And then I have to say something before we leave. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah.
Okay. Well, this is just is there like a blooper or something that went wrong on stage? Because we know something always does, but something that was particularly memorable or funny to you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm an actress as well. And so during those days at 10-10-2M with George Hawkins, I was fortunate enough, finally, he let me act on stage. So we were at 10-10-2M, which was a small space. I told you that, right? So, I mean, literally, if you were on stage and an audience member was there, they almost could, their knees were almost on the stage with us. Okay. Well, B.B. Wilson and I were in this play called 227, written by Christine, I think her name was Christine, I can't remember the last name. Anyway, 227 based on the television show 227. Oh. And so we were playing little kids, because back then I could play a little kid for a long time. So we were playing these little kids, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, and we were eating. Well, all of a sudden we noticed something out of the, you know, our peripheral, and BB looks up and I look up, and there's a rat crawling, going across the beam. And so we both look up, but we're both having dialogue. And she gets up and like, we just started talking. I can't remember now if she got up and had to go to the bathroom, or I said, well, I got to go to the bathroom too. And we left the stage, but we were like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden we could hear the audience we could hear people in the audience going, woo, ooh, ooh, ooh. But they had seen something and they didn't know what it was, but then you could look and see, because there were these big rats sometimes that would come into the theater back then. Not the Ensemble Theater at 3535 Main.
Yeah, right. No, not there.
Not there, but at 10-10-2M, baby, that was the most memorable. I will never forget that as long as I live.
Oh
That's the best.
I would have been I wouldn't have been able to say anything.
I would have just gone probably froze. You at least looked.
I think we did freeze for a moment, and then we figured out how to get off stage. It was like, oh my God.
That's so funny.
Well, good.
But I did want to share that I'm also vice president at TCG, Theater Communications Group. And I think that one of the things that's been really wonderful, we have a new president, Nicole Salter, who's a wonderful playwright and actress, and she lives in New York. And I think that I'll say to all of the artists and to the theater community and the theater family that it's important that people you know, reach out through TCG, because this year's a special year. They're going to be giving some reduced ways of getting involved with TCG, from theater companies to individuals. And because of the fact that TCG has been such a wonderful worldwide networking opportunity for our community, I think it's important that we reach out. And I will say also, because I am on the board with TCG, that if there's anything that anybody wants to talk about, or there's subjects that they think is important for me to bring up to them, I would like to do that. Also, I'm on the board with the Black Theater Network, which is also a network that reaches out and does, you know, various community and networking activities as well. So I wanted to share that, because I think it's important that people know, and that people, if they feel that there's something that they would want to reach out and talk about, that these are platforms that we have that we can do that with. Yes.
This is the most fun I've had in a long time. You are the most wonderful.
You're a dynamo.
Yes.
You all are great.
We love you.
You are great.
And you are an angel and a wonderful, wonderful asset to this community. I can't believe we're so lucky to have you.
Well, I'm blessed to be in your company. I tell you that, because it's really an ensemble of artistry that we all create.
Yeah.
We definitely do.
Someday soon, we're going to come over and give you a big hug.
A hug.
Oh,
hug. That's right. That's right.
All right.
Oh, well, you have a beautiful night, and
too,
can't wait
thank
to see
you
what
so
you're doing
much.
next.
Me too. Same here. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye, everybody.
Beyond the Fourth Wall is produced by Fourth Wall Theater Company, Houston's home for extraordinary performances up close. Each guest is paid for their appearance on this series, in accordance with our mission to pay artists a living wage. Follow the links in the video description to support Fourth Wall with a tax-deductible gift, or to subscribe to our upcoming 10th anniversary season.
I'm going to let Philip do it. I'm going to let him be in charge, which I never do. You know.
Well, you know, that's a hard thing, sister.
It's a hard thing.
That's a hard thing.
All right. Here we go. We're at 7.